You can't beat a square spiral quilting design. It looks so fancy, but yet it's so easy to do. Come with me and I'll show you how. Hey guys, welcome back to Frances Quilts. Well, if you've been reading my blog, which I write every day, you can find it at francesquilts.com/blog, you would know that over the last week or so, I have been piecing on this little quilt. This is a charity quilt, one of my UFOs that I just want to get done. So today it's all pieced, it's sandwiched, it's ready to go, and I'm ready to do some quilting on it. Now, as I have been looking at it, I really think that these two squares right here call for something special. So I'm thinking about quilting a square spiral. Now, a square spiral is a magnificent design because it looks super complicated, but it's really super easy to quilt. So let me show you how it's done. All right, we are ready to stitch our square spiral. I'm going to be using a ruler today that's a little bit longer ruler because I have a 6-inch ruler, but that's going to be a little bit harder to do, so I'm going to use the longer ruler. Now, the thing to remember about a square spiral is you start at a point and you're going to stitch along here like this, but you're not going to end up at this point right here. Instead, I want to end up, in this case, I'm going to want to end up 1 inch away from that corner. So I'm going to be using my ruler to mark 1 inch away from that point right there, and I'll be stitching from here down to here. Now, how am I going to mark that 1 inch right there? I'm going to be looking at these. These are marked in 1/4 inches. Remember that there is also a 1/4 inch from the needle to the edge here. So if I put this 3rd line on the corner down here, so I have 1, 2, 3. As I'm stitching down this direction, I'm going to end up stitching about 1 inch away. This does not have to be exact, but I think 1 inch will be a good size for us to work with. So let's get set up to start stitching in the corner. And I'm stitching this with an orange thread so that you can see the stitching as I do it. So I have my needle down in the very point of that corner right there. I'm going to butt my ruler up against it. At this other end down here, I'm going to put the 1, 2, 3rd mark on the corner right there, and I'm just going to stitch from point to point. It'll get easier as I get smaller. Let me show you. All right, there we go. Now the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put where it is right here, I'm going to butt my ruler up against it. Over here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 marks over like this, and I'm going to stitch from here over to there. We repeat that again, going backwards now from here to 1 inch away from this corner up here. 1, 2, 3. Got it set up. Let's go. And you can see I jumped a little bit out right there, so I need to be careful when I'm starting that stitching. All right, now we're ready to stitch from here to here, and this is where the magic starts happening because we never want to cross this line right here. So we'll set our ruler up back here like this, and we're going to come over again from this point 1, 2, 3 lines. So now we're going to stitch all the way from here to here, but we're going to stop when we get to that line. We're not going to cross that line and move into here. Secure it in place and let's go. All right, okay, we have now sewn the 4 longest lines that we're going to sew. In the next one, when we do it, we're going to stitch from here and we're going to stop 1 inch away from that point right there. So again, we are never crossing a line at this point in time. So I've got this 1, 2, 3 from my edge right there. And let's go. Stop when I get to the line. Same thing, we're going to come over here. 1, 2, 3 on that point right there. And then this right here. And off we go. Again, you see I have stopped on this line. I'm never crossing that first line that I get to. And you can see that that spiral is starting to form. You can see as you quilt further that these angles become more and more acute. But just always remember, all you need to concentrate on is finding the point that you're headed toward and moving over 1 inch away from it. Now at this point, I start having trouble. I have to concentrate on the fact that this line is going to go from here to here because I feel like it needs to be longer. It needs to come down that way, but it's not. It's just keeping that same movement from one line to the next. Now at this point, if I do this line, it's going to be pretty much just parallel to this other one. So I think what I'm going to do is instead of trying to do another line, I'm just going to come from this point that I'm at to this point right here and end it that way. There we go, a fun square spiral, and you saw just how easy it was to do. Well, doesn't that look great? I think those are just wonderful additions to the center of this quilt, and as you saw, it looks so fancy and it looks so complicated, and it is such an easy design to quilt. I hope you'll try it. And if you're interested in other ideas, remember my course, Keeping It Straight, 8 Ways to Use a Straight Edge Ruler. This is one of the methods that I show you, but there's a whole bunch of others as well. I hope you'll join me there. Now I just need to figure out what I'm going to quilt in the rest of this quilt, and we'll look at that in the next week or so. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and maybe even subscribe so you can see future videos about all things quilting. Guys, thank you so much for joining me, and as always, I look forward to seeing you next time on Frances Quilts. Remember, if you like what you've seen, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please check out my website and daily blog at francesquilts.com, and I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Frances Quilts. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope to see you again soon.